Beneath the misty mountains lies the greatest marvel ever wrought by dwarven hands, Khazad-dûm, the Dworodelf, a kingdom carved from the living stone of the world. For ages beyond count, its halls rang with the music of hammers and the deep songs of craftsmen. Its bridges spanned chasms wider than rivers, its mines followed veins of mithril, that wonder metal lighter than silk, stronger than steel, and more precious than gold. 7 levels the dwarves carved, each grander than the last, connected by the endless stair, winding from the cloud-wreathed peak of Zirak-Zigil to the unseen roots of the mountain. Through the second age they delved, and into the third, always deeper. Their axes rang in chambers where no light had ever shone, following the gleaming threads ever downward into the bones of the earth. But how deep did they go? How far beneath the world did the kingdom of Durin truly reach? And what, in the end, did they find? In the elder days, before the sun first rose upon Middle-earth, a single dwarf awoke alone beneath Mount Gundabad. He was Durin the Deathless, eldest of the 7 fathers of the dwarves, and to him was given the gift of long sight and deep memory. He wandered south through the great spine of the misty mountains until he came upon a high valley wreathed in silence. There, mirrored in the still waters of a mountain lake, he saw a crown of stars glimmering above his head. The place was Azanul Bizarre, the Dimril Dale, and the lake was called Keled Zaram, the Mirrormere. There Durin made his seat, and he began the labor of 1,000 years. What he built would become Khazad-dûm, the mansion of the Khazad, the dwarves' truest name for themselves. To elves it would later be known more fearfully as Moria, the Black Chasm. But long before it earned that darker title, it was a place of unmatched splendor, the beating heart of dwarvish might in Middle-earth. Geographically, Khazad-dûm sprawled beneath the central reaches of the Misty Mountains, or Hithaglia, the long mountain chain running north to south from Mount Gundabad to the Gap of Rohan. Its eastern gate opened onto the Dimril Dale, where the Silver Lode, Kibil Nala, flowed eastward into Lothlorien. To the west, its hidden doors lay near the source of the Sirannon, high above the Nanduhirian Valley. The city itself tunneled through the roots of the mountains, linking 2 worlds, 2 kingdoms, Eregion in the west and Lothlorien in the east. Khazad-dûm was founded before the First Age began. While elves still wandered in the starlit forests, Durin's folk were already carving mighty halls beneath the stone. As the ages turned, Khazad-dûm grew vast. Its forges were uncounted. Its bridges spanned abysses blacker than moonless nights. Its mines ran deep into the mountain's heart. And yet, even in those early noble days, the dwarves delved with reverence. They knew the bones of the world bore memories. They built with caution, with song and rune, never driving blind into the dark.
Stone and fire, blood and gold, a story.
There were places in the deeps even they would not name, where their picks fell silent, and the stone seemed to listen. The greatest of their engineers, the Stonewrights, spoke of faultlines where the world felt thinner, cracks in Arda itself. These they avoided, sealing them off with walls and silence. But boundaries do not last forever. In the greed and pride of later days, caution was forgotten. The dwarves dug not for stone, nor for beauty, but for mithril alone. And in so doing, they cut into the marrow of the world. What they found was not gold. It was fire, it was shadow. It was older than memory. For long years, Khazad-dûm prospered beyond the dreams of kings. Its tunnels multiplied like the veins of a great heart. Its halls grew taller than the tallest trees, and its wealth poured out through both western and eastern gates like silver rivers. The hammer song never ceased. The forges never cooled. And deep in the mountain's belly, the mithril sang its own bright music lighter than silk, stronger than steel, and dearer than gold. In the Second Age, the dwarves of Durin's line forged a powerful alliance with the elves of Eregion. There, under Celebrimbor, grandson of Feanor the Fire-Hearted, dwelt the greatest smiths since the Elder Days. It was a time of unmatched creation, when the boundary between dream and metal grew thin. Together, elf and dwarf delved and smelted and wrought marvels that would outlast kingdoms, gems with inner fire that never dimmed, blades that would not dull though they cut through ages. The western gate of Khazad-dûm opened wide in those days, and the Sirannon ran clear and cold from the mountain's heart. Caravans wound daily through the Nanduhirion Valley, bearing treasures that made even the wise grow covetous, the friendship between the realms seemingly eternal. And still they dug. By this time, the hunger for mithril had become something deeper than desire. It had become a need. For mithril was not merely metal. It was strange, unmarred by time, radiant with hidden light that seemed to remember the music of creation itself. The elves whispered that it came from the deeps of the world, fallen into the stone during the very shaping of Arda, older than sun and moon, a gift from the heart of all making. In Khazad-dûm, it lay buried in secret seams beneath the mountain roots, and the dwarves followed those silver threads like a fever dream, driven not by wisdom, but by obsession. Each vein led deeper, each discovery demanded another. The mithril called, and they answered, their picks ringing in chambers where no song had ever echoed. The Third Age had dawned cold and grey by the time they reached the deepest veins. The alliance with Eregion was a memory. Gil-galad and Elendil were dust. The elder kings of Durin's line had long passed into legend, and with them the old caution, the old reverence for what slept in the dark. Durin the Sixth ruled then, proud and strong, believing his realm eternal as the mountains themselves. The wealth of ages lay heaped in his treasuries. His kingdom had endured the fall of Numenor, the war of the last alliance, and the fading of the elves. What could threaten the deathless folk in their halls of living stone? It was he who gave the final order. To mine the lowest reaches of the mountain, below even the endless stair, below the deep mines where the mithril sang brightest, far from the light of forge or lamp. There, in the uttermost dark, the pickaxes struck something that was not stone. It had been waiting. In the blackness beneath the mountain's roots, where no dwarf light had ever shone, the picks broke through into emptiness. It was not the emptiness of a cave or chamber. It was not the absence that follows when stone is carved away. This was an emptiness that remembered. A hollow that had been waiting since the world was young, sealed away by chance and mercy and the weight of ages. The dwarves had found what they sought, the deepest vein of mithril, silver bright and singing with its own radiance. They had also found what they had not sought. What slept there had no name that dwarves remembered, no place in their songs, no mention in their deepest lore. It was a relic not merely of Morgoth's war, but of his first rebellion, when the music of creation was marred and broken, a being of fire and terror, one of the Balrogs of Angband, who had fled the ruin of Thangorodrim at the end of the War of Wrath. While the elves rebuilt their kingdoms, and men rose to power in the fading of the elder days, this one had descended into darkness, into forgetting, into sleep. For over 5,000 years, it had brooded in the deep, deeper than memory, sealed away beneath the mountain. The years had been as moments to it, fire banked but not extinguished, waiting for the sound that would call it back to waking, the sound of greed, the sound of metal striking stone, the sound of violation. The dwarves awoke it. From that moment, Khazad-dûm was doomed. Not all at once, but slowly. Workers vanished in the lowest shafts. Whispers were heard in places thought empty. Lights flickered where no fire should be. The mithril veins grew cold beneath their hands. And then came the fire. Durin the Sixth was the first to face it. the deathless king brought low by a shadow of the elder days. He went down into the deep places to see what his miners had found, bearing torch and guard and the authority of 6,000 years. What met him in that darkness was older than his kingdom, older than his line, older than the very mountains that sheltered his halls. He died as fire dies, consumed utterly, leaving nothing but shadow and the memory of burning. His son, Nain. I tried to rally the dwarves to seal the deep places and hold the kingdom entire, but the Balrog was no longer sleeping. It moved through the deeps like a tide of flame, and before it the stone itself seemed to recoil. Nain fell within a year of his father, struck down in the very chamber of Mazarbul, where the kings of old had held their council. The survivors fled then, abandoning their sacred halls to darkness. They took what they could carry, and left the rest, their accumulated glory of ages, to the flame and shadow. In the days that followed, men called it Durin's bane, but its true name was lost, or perhaps never spoken by any who lived to remember. It was not a beast of this world, but a remnant of the first fire, kindled in the ancient heart of Melkor's rebellion. The dwarves had delved too greedily and too deep into the buried nightmares of the world. They did not understand that Arda remembers its wounds, and in Moria, they tore one open. In the ruins of what was once splendor, the true measure of Khazad-dûm reveal in its silences. The dwarves had carved their kingdom through the living heart of the mountain, from the Dimril Dale in the east to the Hollin Gate in the west. 7 levels they had made, each greater than the last, connected by the endless stair that coiled like a stone serpent from the heights of Durin's tower to depths that had no name. But it was not the mapped halls that told the true story of Moria's depth. It was the unmapped places, the tunnels that led away from light and memory into the hungry dark. In the eastern reaches, near the second hall where the Fellowship of the Ring would one day make their stand, there lies a place where stone ends and the world falls open. The Bridge of Khazad-dûm, a narrow arch of dwarven stone spanning a chasm that has no visible bottom. A single path, barely wide enough for 2 to walk abreast, hung high over a gulf of shadow deeper than imagination. The dwarves built it not for ease, but for defense, a narrow crossing where few could stand against many. But it was more than that. It was a gate of another kind. Behind it lay the blackest portions of Moria, where the dwarves had ceased to name their ways and had begun to fear their own work. The chasm it crosses is not mapped. It is not measured. No rope has touched its floor. Its walls descend beyond sight, beyond torchlight, beyond even the reach of dwarven echo. This abyss is no natural cave, no mine shaft carved by tool and flame. It is older than Khazad-dûm itself. The dwarves found it when they were still young in craft, and they built around it, not over it. For even Durin the Deathless, in his wisdom, knew to leave that wound alone. Some among the wise have whispered that the chasm is a scar from the wars of the Ainur, a place where the power of Melkor himself tore through the stone of Arda during the ancient struggles. Others believe it is a remnant from before the music, something that was never meant to be filled, because it does not truly belong in this world. Here, the Balrog waited, in the black hollow beneath the bridge, in the eternal fall. It did not sleep. It brooded, suffused with memory and hatred. Beyond the bridge, deeper still, lie passages that no fellowship would ever walk. Stairways carved but never finished, as if abandoned in sudden fear. Galleries that stretch into darkness, where torchlight dies before it reaches the walls. Shafts that descend not just into stone, but into something else. Levels of the world not made for elves or dwarves or men. There are no maps for these places, no names in any tongue. The dwarves are gone from them. Orcs will not descend. Even Gollum, who crept through the tunnels of Moria for centuries, avoided the deepest dark. In that abyss, no light returns, sound does not echo, time does not pass. It is the place where ardor forgets itself. There are places even the Balrog did not go. Beneath the seventh deep, beyond the endless stare from the heights of Durin's tower, to the unlit depths far below, the stone itself began to change. It was older than the shaping of the mountains. It was not meant to be carved or walked upon, it was meant to remain untouched. In those lowest regions, the dwarves had no names for tunnels they uncovered. No lights were hung. They called them simply the deep places, and abandoned them long before Durin's bane ever stirred. But they were not empty. Even Gandalf, who alone of the wise passed through the blackest deeps of Moria, spoke with dread of what he glimpsed in the farthest dark. Far, far below the deepest delvings of the dwarves, the world is gnawed by nameless things. Even Sauron knows them not. They are older than he. These were not beasts nor spirits. They were not servants of the enemy. They had no allegiance, no shape that could be described, no voice that could be understood. Tolkien named them only once, and in doing so left behind a deeper horror than any visible foe. These were the nameless things, and they dwelt in silence. They are the rot at the roots of the world. They are the remnants of a forgotten order, or perhaps a failed one. Experiments of thought or matter that predate the songs of the Ainur. Maybe they are fragments of Morgoth's first corruption, cast into the bedrock before even Arda took form, or maybe they are older still, blind slitherings of chaos from before the music was sung, lost in the foundation layers of creation. No lore tells of them, no Vala speaks of them. Even the wise among the Eldar do not guess at their purpose. What is known is this: when Gandalf fell from the bridge of Khazad-dûm, he fell for days, down a shaft so deep that time seemed to lose its meaning. The Balrog fell with him, and in that fall they passed through the deepest hall of Moria and the forgotten world beneath it. I threw down my enemy, and he fell from the high place and broke the mountainside where he smote it in his ruin. Then darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time, and I wandered far on roads that I will not tell. What Gandalf did not say, and what none can know, is what else he saw in those black depths. He passed through a place where light had never touched, where stone was shaped not by hand or hammer, but by hunger. There, perhaps, the nameless things stirred in the dark, sensing the fall of two ancient powers like blood on the water. Even the Balrog, spirit of fire and ruin, did not linger there. How deep is Moria? There is no final number. No shaft has struck bottom. No map has reached its end. For the depth of Moria is not measured in fathoms of rock or the count of stairwells. It is measured in what was uncovered and what was lost. The dwarves built Khazad-dûm as a monument to endurance and craft. But in the end, the deeper they delved, the less they found of treasure, and the more they found of truth. And the truth was this, that there are places in Arda older than memory and darker than evil. Not all shadows come from malice. The dwarves did not fall because they hated the light. They fell because they chased it into a place where light had never been meant to go.